Decorating Pages is a podcast dedicated to taking you behind the scenes of the designs of your favorite TV shows and films. Each episode, I'll be sharing design stories from some of Hollywood's most famous sets. Interviews from set decorators, production designers, directors, and actors about creating the look of TV and film, about their design inspirations, and stories that take sets from page to screen. On this episode, we will be talking with director Beth McCarthy Miller. Beth is one of the most versatile directors working in TV today. She bounces from single-camera shows to live TV performances and stand-up comedy specials. She started out directing in MTV spots and then moved for an 11-year gig directing on Saturday Night Live. She directs mostly half-hour comedies, 30 Rock, Modern Family, Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, Divorce, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Veep, Parks and Rec, The Good Place, so many more. She's directed comedy shows like Bill Maher, Dave Attell, Jim Norton, D.L. Hewley, Bob Saget, live performances such as the Super Bowl halftime shows with Britney Spears and Aerosmith, and the famous Janet Jackson, Justin Timberlake, Nipplegate halftime show. She has 31 nominations, including 11 Emmy nominations and 11 wins, including multiple Directors Guild and Cable Ace Awards, Golden Derby, Gracie Allen, Online Film and Television Awards. She's it. She's had such an amazing career and is in no signs of stopping. She's amazing. I first met Beth on Parks and Rec Season 6, the Galentine's Day episode, which now blows my mind that a TV show has a part in an unofficial holiday to celebrate women. It's near and dear to my heart. I remember looking her up when I got the director's schedule, and it physically made me sit back in my chair because I am a huge Saturday Night Live fan. I boast that I have not missed an episode since the late 80s, and I'm very proud of that. Beth is one of only 4 directors in the run of the whole show, and the only female of those directors. The comedy that she has been a part of, in my opinion, is legendary. Other projects that she directed that she probably doesn't know how much it influenced my generation, or I guess she does, but MTV's Unplugged specifically. Nirvana Unplugged. I watched it so many times. It was a staple of where I was. I was in high school, and it was just the perfect time for that music in my life, and so many others. She directed 6 of the Unplugged series: Tony Bennett, Stone Temple Pilots, Neil Young. I'm super lucky to have worked with her. She's an inspiration and just a really nice person. So I hope you enjoy this. Thank you so much for doing this.
I would do anything for you, Kim.
No. Because I have such a crush on you.
Girl crush right back at you, girl.
Okay. You are directing episode 7 of season 4 of The Good Place right now, and we have a late call, so you're nice enough to come in a little early for me and do this.
I'm very excited, and it's going to be a delightfully long night, so...
You get really interesting episodes, the ones that I feel like I see you.
I've done a lot of parties. A lot of big stuff. I do get really fun episodes of this show.
Yeah.
And I think any episode of this show is an absolute treat, but I have
fun.
gotten some pretty, I have dodged the multiple Janet episodes, which I think must be a technical nightmare.
Only Morgan Sackett will
I know.
take that on.
That episode got sacketed.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's an absolute thrill and honor to work on something of such high quality, and
it's fun. We have so much fun here.
And such
it's
a great
crazy.
group
And Mike
of people.
Schur is...
Mike Schur is the man, and then everybody else from, number 1 and 2 on the call sheet down. I mean, Ted and Kristen are delights. all the writers are amazing. It's just it's a nice place to go to work.
And it's the good place.
Yes, it is the good place. And also, I'm getting to that point where I'm 55, and I like to go to places where I like to go to work.
Yeah.
You know, I'd rather work on something that's good quality and a good experience and really a fun experience to be at than be on the number one most amazing, downloaded, unbelievable show ever if it's not a pleasant experience.
Yeah. It's not worth it.
To me, it is. It's in that life's too short category now.
It is. I have found that when I've followed the money, I've been miserable.
Yeah.
When I've followed the little passion project or that'll be good, it's good people, it's the better time in my life.
I also found earlier in my career when I did that, those experiences reaped different rewards. It's something like this little project that you did because you thought it was smart and funny, and then 5 years later, the person that wrote it was like, oh my God, I have this new big show, and I loved you, and can you come work on it?
Right.
So I find that, you really always have to go with your instincts because at the end of the day, what do you have? I mean, you want to come home happy every day after work.
After you're tired.
Exactly. tired.
You got to be
happy. Not torturing your family because you've had a terrible day on set. Yeah. And it's a lot of pressure. I mean, TV shows cost a lot of money. And
it's quick. Our days our episodes are quick. I used to get so scared on Parks. Every Monday's a new episode.
Yeah.
That train is chugging on Monday morning, and that's it. There's no, 1 hour I always felt we have the weekend because it was a 9-day something and you could catch up a little.
Not on half hours.
Not on half hours.
But I kind of love that. Now when someone calls me to ask me to do something that's longer and I'm like 3.5 weeks on one thing.
Now on Veep, we had 9-day episodes this last season, and I remember saying to you, I'm sick of looking at you. Yeah. So usually
you're still here?
Everybody's in and out, and it happened with every director there, because it was wow, you're still here. We went over.
You got another scene to shoot? My Lord.
Oh, man.
But remember those episodes that ended up being 30-something minutes on the air were an hour or something of shooting.
30 minutes cut.
Yeah.
24 minutes aired. Yeah. I think, probably. Let's go back a little bit. How did you start?
I went to college at University of Maryland, and at the time they had this major within their communications department called Radio, Television, and Film. It was basically their communications. And I minored in government and politics because I grew up in a house. I'm the youngest of 9. Mm-hmm. My dad was really a self-made man, born to Irish immigrants. And, his first and I think only his brother went to college besides him. First one in his family to own a car, worked all day, went to school at night, that kind of thing.
American dream.
And he really lived it and had a ridiculous work ethic and had an incredible passion for education. So, we didn't get fancy brand new clothes and we didn't get a new car when we got our license, but we got to go to whatever college we wanted, and my parents paid for it, which
a better deal, really.
Unbelievable.
Better deal.
And such
and
a better
amazing
deal.
To have that for 9 children.
Yeah,
to give
it was
that
nuts.
To them. Yeah,
we all went to parochial school. We went to a parochial private high school, and all got to go to whatever college we wanted to, which was amazing. And because of that, I decided I can't do something fun for a living. I'm going to go into hard news because that, gives back to the universe somehow. And I interned at CNN in Washington. I didn't enjoy it at all. It's, you have to have a stomach for news, and it's amazing for the people that do it, and it's a really tough job. But, when the most exciting days are when something terrible happens.
Right.
It's hard. Look, there are so many careers that I look at the people that do them and go, God bless you, because I could never do it.
I could never do it.
And so when I graduated from college, I DJ'd through college and did a lot of stuff with music. And one of my brothers was lead counsel at MTV Networks, and he told me about a paid internship, and I applied for it and I got it. So I started interning at MTV the summer that I graduated from college, and really had no idea what I was going to do. And MTV was like going to graduate school, and getting paid a teeniest bit of money. But back in the day, it was like the Wild West, meaning that, you know, I started there in the summer of '85. They had gone on the air in '81. They didn't really make any of their own shows. They did the VJ segments, and every once in a while did music performances. But, you know, the year after I got there was when the network made Remote Control, and then we started making TV shows, and nobody kind of knew what we were doing. We just kind of...
So did you start out directing?
No, I started out as an intern for the summer.
Mm-hmm.
Then I got a job working on the Video Music Awards that year, taking care of Bob Geldof and his family, because he was winning an award for Live Aid. I was like, this is a great job.
Oh,
Yeah.
Bob Geldof. I'm sorry. I thought you said Bobcat.
Yeah, Bobcat Goldthwait. He won an award for Live Aid because he was hilarious in it.
I got very confused for a second and very excited.
I love him.
But
yeah. So and then I got a job being the assistant to the line producer at the studio, and I really didn't know where my direction was. My basic thing was whatever job paid me more money so I could waitress less on the weekends and work at the Gap less during the holidays so I could get the discount on gifts.
That's the perfect holiday side job.
The Gap was across the street on 57th Street, and I worked there part-time.
Everybody got
so
Gap
I could
for Christmas.
get the discount. There's a lot of people to buy for in my family.
You had
it was
8 siblings.
Nuts. Yeah. So I would just take whatever job, and there was an associate director position. They trained me to do that, and I started associate directing.
So
and then
on-the-job training, really.
It was nuts. It was amazing. We were so lucky. It was very sink or swim, but if you could swim.
But MTV, as the viewer in that time, you felt like, it was just so cutting edge. Like, it was no other channel had it. There was only 20 channels.
Yes.
But no other channel had this.
And it was...
freedom.
It was nuts because, you know, your bosses were 30 years old. You were 23, and the vice president of your department was 30, and they were creative, and they, and there were a lot of women that were in charge at MTV. Judy McGrath and Marcy Brofman were there when I started, and Doug Herzog was a big executive for me many years. But they were all, just a little bit older than you, but they were unbelievably creative. They were willing to take chances. Mm-hmm. And that network, when you look at it early on, there was so much, it was very stylized. It was very cutting edge.
The graphics, I remember. Yeah. I just remember the graphics coming at you.
Yeah, the promos were always so cool. Yeah. We tried to do different stuff with the shows. So it was the greatest time in the world to be there, and I learned so much.
You eventually directed MTV Unplugged.
Yes.
And the defining one is Nirvana.
Yeah.
It's to me, it sort of captures that era so perfectly. His outfit, his hair, his voice, a young Dave Grohl.
Yeah.
And when you would direct those episodes, did you have any input of what the sets would be? Because I know that they were kind of all the same. It's the big, unplugged sort of room.
Yes, there was, when we started, basically the set design was based on budget to begin with.
Usually.
We did, yeah, exactly. And it was... in the round, the first few we did in the MTV studio, the first couple seasons. And then as it got bigger and, I think once Don Henley did the show, it became its own beast. And then a bunch of people wanted to do it, and Eric Clapton.
Yeah, I mean, Tears in Heaven.
Isn't that amazing?
Is etched in my mind.
Yeah.
And I cried.
Yeah.
I know I cried, and I watched it last night, and I cried again.
Yeah, my friend Milt directed that episode, and it was unbelievable. And those episodes catapulted that show to be something, a much bigger thing. But there was the production designer, Tom McPhillips. It was soft goods, things that you could light and you could change the look depending upon what the song was. And then each artist, if they wanted something specific, you would enhance the set based on that. And, the Nirvana Unplugged was definitely, inspired by Kurt. And it was definitely led by Kurt. And Kurt wanted all those lilies on the set. And he definitely inspired. He was a true artist, and he knew what he wanted to present.
Right.
So,
well, yeah. I mean, it's a weird thing because of, you think of, I'm getting off here, but you knew he was depressed. Like as a fan, we all knew like this guy's going through something. But the lilies was always like this reborn, like the Jesus. Like I just think of Easter.
The candles and the lilies, and it was when I first walked out of the set, I was like, "Oh, this looks a little like a funeral for a friend." But it was beautiful. There was nothing. There was no morbidness to the look of it. It wasn't. You're right. There was a rebirth feeling of it, and I think a little bit. Kurt was kind of reinventing Nirvana with that Unplugged. Not that it needed to be reinvented, but I think he also wanted to show that there was so much more depth to them musically. And it really, that Unplugged made them from a trio to that was when Pat had first joined the band, and they had toured a little with Pat, but that Unplugged, I think there's interviews where Kurt says that Unplugged really made them a cohesive 4-piece band. And it was some of the most beautiful music I've ever seen.
But your camera work, I mean, you had like the jib, and it was like beautifully done, wasn't it? Just beautifully done.
We had really great camera people that worked on that show, and it was a hard show to shoot because it was in the round. We did an episode with Tony Bennett, and he did the whole rehearsal, and everything was great. And usually the people in the back of the audience, they were audience, but they basically saw the backs of everybody for the whole show. Well, Tony Bennett, who was a true gentleman, when we actually shot the show, started turning around the whole show to the back of the crowd where we had no cameras.
And you're not going to say, hey.
No lighting, just backlighting.
Cut, tone. Yeah. Really.
So we started calling that Unplugged MTV Unplugged Tony's Back, because literally you see his back half of the show.
Poor guy.
It was great, though.
But I remember it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't remember the back of his head, but I remember it.
What a treat it was for me, who's a total, absolute, huge fan of music. The rehearsals that I've been privy to, and the moments that I was able to sit and watch them working out. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Hell Freezes Over is really
good.
I mean, I was excited about it, but I'll never forget sitting. It was done at Warner Brothers, and I was sitting. It was maybe like 8 of us sitting in a room the first time they all got up on stage and they went to rehearse the acoustic section. It was the first time they were all on stage together.
God.
They were in rehearsal rooms, but on a stage together. And I got goosebumps. I totally got goosies.
Is that one, or are there any other, a surreal moment that you've had?
There's been so many.
Yeah.
I did that, we did that 9/11, right after 9/11, we did a telethon. It wasn't the big thing in New York City that happened months later at the Garden. It was a small, intimate thing that happened on both coasts, and those were moments that I'll never forget. You're sitting there. It's 5 days after the towers have fallen, or 7 days after the towers have fallen, and Billy Joel comes and he goes to do New York State of Mind, and one of the crew guys hands his brother's firefighter hat and says, this was my brother's hat. He died in 9/11, and Billy put it on his piano, and literally everyone, he's like just singing the song. We're all standing in the room sobbing. But God bless, knock on something, wood, Formica, whatever this is. I have been truly a lucky duck.
Oh, well, I think I never say I'm lucky. I say that I had enough in me at the time. Timing and talent collided.
Okay, I like that.
Because I don't think it's not who you know, it's who remembers you. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, I don't feel like I feel like someone remembered me for a job, and then that's how I got
Yes.
it. Because I like before you were saying like you never knew who you were going to work with that would lead to something else.
Yes, and I agree with that, but literally me starting at MTV at the time that I started at MTV was just nuts. It was definitely kismet, you know.
Yeah. And then
Worlds colliding.
so you started out in live, and then eventually went to single camera. You still do live,
Yeah.
Obviously, but do you find it hard to transition? Like, is there more freedom in one than the other?
You know what? There's different skill set and there's different things that I like about both. There is nothing like the adrenaline of live television. When I left Saturday Night Live, I knew that there was a possibility that I wouldn't experience that high again, which I ended up doing Live 30 Rocks. I did the Live Sound of Music, which was a whole other ball wax. That was
That's insane.
you know, that was
insane. Now,
bonkers.
did you were you in there early to choreograph the camera moves with the set?
No, what happened was there was another director Rob Ashford, and he was, choreographed a lot of stuff in a rehearsal space, and then I went to the rehearsal space like a month later, started watching it, and then would adjust things for camera, and then we were on camera, and it was, I blocked that show in like 8 days. It was nuts.
That's
That's that's another experience where I got the absolute best camera people I could get, and the great lighting, great set design, great everything, all fell together, and that was a beautiful show that I was really proud of.
Stunning.
Yeah.
And then, is it the same kind of prep with a Super Bowl show? Do you get?
No, it's different. The Super Bowl is a little nutty because the halftime show is a little blip of what is the Super Bowl, and
some people only watch the halftime show.
I know, but the most important person,
commercials and
besides the teams, the most important person at the Super Bowl, I think, is the field guy, because he runs everything. He lets you know where you can stand, when you can have the field, when you can't have the field. So when you rehearse the Super Bowl halftime show, you only get the field Thursday night for like 6 hours. And in that 6 hours, you have like 3,000 or 4,000 volunteers that run on and build the stage in the 6 minutes that you have before you come up on the halftime show. You have, if you're doing, they used to never do like live instruments and live vocals, and we were the first people that did that. You have to make sure all that's working in 6 minutes, and you get.
I mean, for everything to be plugged in right.
Exactly.
That's
no, it's nuts.
Like
it's nuts. Only one thing could absolutely be a disaster.
One mic not plugged in.
No, it's true.
And you're screwed. You don't hear the guitar.
Yeah.
Or the singer.
Nuts.
God forbid.
And then you get a bunch of the Super Bowl cameras, and then you can bring in some of your own. So you've got camera 1 and you've got camera 55, and it's a little nuts. And one time, and also the Super Bowl guys are listening to the truck for the Super Bowl, and then they switch their headsets, and then they can hear me. And one of the Super Bowls, the switch was not working, and it's a minute till we're live. And I'm looking at our tech manager from MTV, who's amazing, and I'm like going, George, no one can hear me. They can't hear me. And we were like freaking out. And about 15 seconds later, it was like, yeah. And I could hear the camera guys, the Super Bowl camera guys going, can you hear her? I don't know. I can't hear her. All right, well, I guess I'll just do what we did in rehearsal. And I was like, yeah.
You're so close, but so far away because they can't hear you.
The thing about live is there's things that you don't have control of, and that's amazing, and it's also terrifying.
Yeah.
So with single camera, you have so much more control of what you're doing.
Right.
But it's a different pace, and it's a different style. And, directing a show like Saturday Night Live, where you're giving notes on performances and blocking and stuff, and then when you're there live, you just hope that everybody hits their mark, and everybody knows their lines, and everybody does everything the way you gave them the notes. Whereas when you're doing single camera, you go cut and go in and change it a little bit, and I love both. I'm really lucky that I can do both.
Yeah.
And swim in and out of it.
You bounce in and out of it so fluently.
I bounce around a little bit, yeah.
I wonder on SNL, did you have any input of where the skits would be? Because I know it's center stage.
Yeah, a lot.
You did, yeah.
So what happens is the show gets picked on Wednesday night, and after you do a big table read, and you pick more sketches than what get on the air. Mm-hmm. And then the first thing you have to do once those sketches are picked, I sit in the meeting and I start looking around, and if there's a sketch that has 4 sets, and there's a set with a hot tub in it where you can't move that set, because when you go to Saturday Night Live, and I don't know if anyone experiences it, but if you get an opportunity to, it's one of the most amazing things to watch because of what happens behind the scenes.
I saw that video they had out a couple years ago of them building a set and taking it down.
Literally, they build a set in a minute.
Yeah, amazing.
It's the crew on that show. They're insane. They're so I miss all the people that work at that show because they're all amazing at what they do. And when you go to do something quickly somewhere else, you realize how much you miss them because they're
like, I got a guy in New York that could get this going.
Yeah. I got people in New York that can change Daryl Hammond from Bill Clinton to Jesse Jackson in 4.5 minutes. It's that kind of thing. So it's an experience to watch. And so the first thing I have to do is figure out what sets have to have a home because they can't be moved around. What sets can be built where. What there's certain sketches and performances that you really want front and center in the audience. So there's a home base set, but it's very shallow, so you have to figure out what you can actually do there. You can do like some talk show stuff there, so you have to kind of, that's an art in itself, and a thing that you just figure out. It's a dance,
especially I would think too with your cameras of like, well, if I'm assuming like the front stage, you probably only have so many cameras in that.
Well, you can, but it is that thing where you have to have enough, you have 5 cameras on that show and that's it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And those guys are amazing too, and they are swinging around and running for. Sometimes, they're losing their last light and going to another set because they have to do an insert of somebody else that's on the other side of the studio. I mean, it can be crazy, and there are a couple times where you have to go uncle, like, we can't do this.
Yeah.
Or we can't do this without a piece of tape in the middle of it or an exterior of a house to give me 5 seconds to get a camera to swing to go somewhere else.
And that's discussed with you too. Like,
yes.
We'll do a pre-tape here. We'll
all
do this.
That stuff, it all gets managed between Wednesday night when the first thing I do when I leave the meeting once the show gets picked, there's a meeting in Lauren's office and the show gets picked, I go into the design room and I sit with the production designers and we decide where we're going to put everything. And then the writers come in and they kind of produce their own pieces, and then it's talking about what the set should look like. The costumes are in there, makeup's in there. We talk about, and then I go home that night and go over all the sketches, and then the next morning you're in a meeting going, I need a shot of a house here. We need to pre-tape this person because there's no way that we can do, so it's...
I would think the battle between, like, makeup and hair or wardrobe being, like, you could put that up next all you want, but I can't get 6 cast members dressed or, like, another...
Like, you know what? You never say never on that show. That's what's so nuts about it.
But I'm sure it comes up of, like, can we have something in the middle so that we don't have
It's
to
crazy,
that,
though. But, I mean, literally, there'll be a week where a writer writes a sketch where it's all our cast being oversized Peanuts characters, and it's cast, it's picked Wednesday night, and on Saturday there are these like paper mache heads with perfect.
Oh, it's insane. The costumes on that show, to me, is always like amazing.
And
amazing.
Also with the sets, which you'll love to hear. We do a dress rehearsal Saturday night at 8:00 at night, and the set could have wallpaper on it, and when we shoot it during the dress rehearsal, and be painted a different color
for the live.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's still wet.
Changes are made.
Oh yeah.
That quickly.
That's amazing.
It's crazy.
I don't know if I could do it, but I would have an ulcer.
I don't think I'm probably going. I know I can't prove this, but I probably will not live as long as I.
It took a couple years.
Should have.
Couple months, couple years.
At least a few months.
Veep took some time off my life.
Yeah.
Okay. I know it. I know it. There's a lot of crying in the bathroom.
Yeah.
crying it out, singing Mariah on the way home.
Yes.
Getting it out, and then you're just back.
Yeah.
And this is what it is. Yeah.
But you know what? When the final product is what it is, you go.
Yeah. I don't think I'll ever have anything better than Veep, to be quite honest. I gotta be honest.
It's just nuts.
It was my favorite show.
Yeah.
I got to work on it.
I know.
It was a dream, and it was so hard.
Yeah.
So brutally hard sometimes, and really beat us down as in our departments and everyone else. But the product, when you watch it, I can't believe it's over.
I know, it makes me
Those
really
episodes
sad.
went so fast.
They did.
And but yeah, I kind of I'm like, oh, I don't know. That's a peak that I don't know if I would ever have again.
But that's okay.
Oh yeah, that's okay.
That's okay to have that experience, and also that so soon from it, you can appreciate it for what it was too.
I find working with you, you're so practical in like any requests from the sets or the designer or what we need from props and everything. And do you ever get to a set and think this isn't going to work? Do you in your mind think, do I change anything because of the sets, or do I ask for it to be changed?
I think every once in a while there's something where when you're on a show, being an episodic TV director has certainly helped me with that a lot, because you go to different shows every week or every couple weeks, and the show is the show. You're the wrench thrown in, so you have to. The first thing is the show needs to look like the show, and then after that, whatever you can add to it and try to make better, that's your job too. But your first job is to make sure the show is still the show. And sometimes things are done where you're like, yeah, really? Okay. And then you try to make it work. But
don't talk about me like that.
But SNL gave me a lot of those skills, because we were reblocking sketches sometimes between dress and air. So I don't get thrown for a loop too much, because I learned early on to adjust, because I feel, especially with comedy is a group effort. Comedy at its best is teamwork. I think best idea always wins. I don't care who had it. And because of that, I feel like it's so collaborative that I learned very early on how to adjust and think of other ways to make things work.
Yeah. It is I feel like even if I had a week to prepare, there's still those moments of like, we got to change this.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have 5 minutes to prepare and you nailed it.
Yeah.
Or vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
So you're always sort of kept on your toes here, because it is, if an idea comes up on set and now we want to do this, or now we want to shoot over here, okay.
Yeah.
You got to be prepared. And
I also think with a show like this, like The Good Place, it really comes from the mind of Mike.
Yes.
So your prep is so important, because you've worked with him multiple times and worked with this team multiple times, you can kind of, you're making the right choices sometimes, but sometimes, I'm sure, I've had the same thing where I've sat in a tone meeting and I'm like, oh, and they're doing this, right? And he's like, oh, no, the intention is that.
Well, like
because
yesterday.
in 3 episodes, no, but they're like, but in 3 episodes, this is what's going to happen to this character. I'm like, oh, okay, now I get it.
Now you get it.
And you feel a little bit like a dum-dum, but then you're like, how would I know that? People interpret things the way they interpret them.
Like yesterday, I got a bigger than expected table for a character, and it was bigger. It wasn't huge.
No, but you did.
But I took a note.
Yes.
That I heard in a meeting.
You did.
And
you went with it.
And then I fixed it.
Yeah.
And
it was perfect. It worked out beautifully last night.
See, and I wouldn't have gotten that little table.
Yes.
I think a little now.
Yeah.
If that hadn't happened.
Yeah.
So it worked out. If you could be a part of anything, even in the past, if it was like Gone with the Wind or anything, was there anything that you would have liked to have directed or think in the future?
I would love to. One of my favorite genres of movies growing up were those John Hughes kind of movies, the movies that were super funny, but they were poignant and sweet, and the anti-hero, and they could be broad and nutty, but also super grounded. I would love a script like that to jump in my lap. there are multiple shows that growing up made me such a big fan of comedy. And if I could have directed an episode of Mary Tyler Moore, hell yeah, I would have done that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of shows. One of my, I would love to. I don't do drama, but there's certain shows. If like I got to direct an episode of Mad Men or an episode of The Sopranos or an episode of Homeland or one of those really cool dramas that I love, I would totally love to do a show like that, and have that experience. But I have, as far as when I was working in that genre, I definitely got to do some of the coolest stuff in that genre. When I worked at MTV, it was the greatest place to work, and I was a music head, and I got to direct almost every single one of my favorite bands and work with incredible comedians, and that's where I met Jon Stewart, and he is a genius
Phenomenal.
as far as I'm concerned. And then I went to Saturday Night Live at a time where it was a creative haven for women, so I was really proud of that.
Because Tina Fey was the head writer there.
Eventually, but I started with a whole new cast, and it was Will Ferrell, who, I mean, God
I never
bless,
heard of him.
and also terrible and not funny and a terrible human being. He's like the most lovely, wonderful, amazing, and so talented. Every cast member I worked with while I was there was amazing. And, Sherry and Molly were big stars, and Anna, and then Tina and Amy. And, I had a very long relationship with Tina, who I absolutely love and adore, and Amy. But, I worked a ton with Tina and Robert Carlock, and, the opportunities I got working on a show like 30 Rock and, Alec and...
Oh, I wanted to ask you, do you have a different vibe? Because you've directed an abundance of 30 Rock and then abundance of Modern Family. Is the vibe different because it's a different coast?
I mean, I think there's a definitely different vibe working in LA versus New York, but, funny is funny to me, and both those shows are extremely well written, unbelievably well acted, incredibly produced. I mean, they're both just quality high. And, you got to experience it, and I got to experience it a couple times on Parks and Rec, too, it starts with amazing scripts, and then it continues with amazing casts, and then it continues with amazing production people surrounding it. And when you have those opportunities, you just want to do it more and more. And I feel like when you do many episodes of a show, for me, you feel like you're part of the show a little bit, so you feel a little more comfortable just going in and asking questions. And when I go do the first episode of a show, I don't run to the showrunner and be like, hey, wouldn't it be great if we did this here, and can we change that? And because it's their show, and I'm a guest, and I try to make the show as good as I can possibly make it. But when I'm more familiar and I've been around the show more, I definitely feel like I can put a little more of my stamp on it, because I feel like I have a comfort level to be able to go, hey, wouldn't it be great if we did this?
Right. You directed the Galentine's Day.
I know.
And now it's like an unofficial holiday.
I love it.
How amazing is that?
I know. And you know what? I didn't do that many Parks and Recs, but the ones that I did...
You got that one.
were End the Banquet, the first season, which was amazing. And I did... the last season I did Leslie Moran. And that, Mike Shore wrote, and it... And I mean, Nick and Amy, oh my God, they were amazing in that episode. I'm super duper lucky. And Galentine's Day was just...
That warms my heart every year.
I know.
And I get I can't believe I was sort of a part of that.
I know.
It's crazy.
I know.
I have nothing to do with it really, except for the...
That's not true.
But it's very inspiring.
Yes.
And leads to what a good group Mike puts around him.
Oh yeah.
That it just it puts out there.
It always starts from the top, and I've been really lucky to work with incredibly funny, amazingly talented people who happen to be lovely human beings as well. Good. I mean, come on.
I would be first in line to buy a book if you ever wrote one of Saturday Night Live, because I am partly obsessed. I wish I could listen to stories and stories for hours about that, because I will say I have seen every episode of SNL since the late 80s.
That's amazing.
I TiVo'd it. I used to VHS it. I've never missed an episode.
It's an institution, and the thing about it is, when I first started there, I was sick to my stomach every day, and it was a whirlwind tour. And the first time you do the show, you do the dress rehearsal and then the show. It's not like you do practice shows.
Was your first show Chevy Chase?
No, it was Mariel Hemingway and Blues Traveler.
And because I saw that and I was like, oh my God, I would die if my first show, even being on anything, was Chevy Chase coming back into the mix.
Oh no, it was Mariel Hemingway. But enjoy this. I hate being on camera more than anything in the world. Hate it. So they wrote a monologue where Mariel Hemingway, because she's famous because she was in that Personal Best movie, and she had kissed Roseanne the year before or 2 years before.
Right.
So she hosted the show, and they wrote this funny monologue where she's introducing a whole new cast, and she kind of breezes past all the guys who she's super beautiful, and they're all like goo-go-eye about her, and she's really into all the girls. And then she comes in the control room, introduces me, and kisses me.
Nice.
Yeah, on the lips.
First.
She's a great kisser. But literally my first show I'm directing, sick to my stomach, freaking out. I have to be on camera and kissed by Mariel Hemingway. Which,
It's not bad.
That is not
That's
bad.
not a bad day, man.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
It could be worse.
But yeah, so that... But I would say 6 months into the show, January or February, I have a moment on the 17th floor is where, the offices are, and then the 8th floor is where we shoot the show. And there's all these pictures. I mean, the show is historic.
All the black and white.
They have black and whites of every cast member that's ever been on the show. And then they have all these photos of classic sketches. And I walked around the hallway one day. I think it was kind of the end of January or the beginning of February. And I had that moment where I was like, holy blank. Yeah. I cannot believe I work here.
Right.
What is going on? This is nuts. And then you have that moment where is someone going to figure out I'm a fraud?
Right.
You just...
I have that every day.
Yeah. But you do. And it is so much bigger than
And now
anything.
all the sets and the skits that you did are on that hallway. I mean... What a chunk you have, which is amazing.
Kind of cool. It's really amazing, you know?
It is. Thank you. You have to go to set now.
You're welcome. I have to go to set and work.
Yes.
And make sure that the right table's there. No, I'm kidding. Yes. No.
Just don't touch it.
I'm not going to touch it. It did break once.
Did it? Oh, sorry.
No, they went to move it and the top came off.
Hey, I warn people.
I know.
I had to make a table.
Yeah, but you did a great job. And it looks amazing. And it was perfect.
Do you know what I did? It's mirrored. And I covered it.
Oh, you covered it?
I was on my hands and knees for 20 minutes.
Cam.
Then I had help. Because then my crew saw me on my hands and knees black taping it. Because I was like,
oh my God.
I got to get this done.
Oh, no.
No.
But you did a great job. And it was an awesome table. And you saw it.
Did Ted like it? That's all I care.
Ted Danson, America's Treasure. Love that table.
Yeah. He wants, actually, I got a note. He wants to bring it home.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You are so welcome. Thanks for having me.
I absolutely love working with you, and I'm always in awe of you.
And I'm going to miss you, and I hope we find something soon together to do.
I know. We will.
All our shows that we do together are gone.
I know. What's that say?
We're
bigger and
show
better
killers?
Probably. I like to finish them out.
I hear you.
You
got to take them to the finish line.
Yeah.
I like it.
I'm in. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. Beth is so nice and so sweet and so witty and a pleasure to work with. Always so into it on set and just really fun to be around. And one of the nicest people that I've met in this business. It's been a pleasure, an absolute pleasure to work with her. I really can't say more, except where we do share a psychic. Now, that's another podcast, but we do. That's a good story. Maybe one day I'll get around to it. Thank you for joining me. I hope you got an earful. I'm Kim Wanup for Decorating Pages. If you want to be up to date about our podcast schedule, please visit decoratingpagespodcast.com and subscribe to our newsletter. Decorating Pages is sponsored by Stogie Floaty, luxury pool floats. Float 'em if you got 'em. Visit stogiefloaty.com.